If you're interested in getting your very first real estate deal and you haven't seen this video yet, I'm gonna link it in the description for you today. It's where I ask over a dozen different real estate investors how they got their first deal. But today, in this video, I'm gonna be answering that question as well as 4 others that I asked all of those investors, but based on my own story. What's up guys, my name is Lili, and if you're new here, this is where I document my real estate investing journey and bring you guys along with me. And I realized that the channel has grown so much recently, and so some of you may not have been around for those early videos before I ever got my first deal. And so I'll link some playlists in the description for you that show that entire process over the course of weeks and months. But today, I want to answer these questions for you to help you get to know me, my journey, and really hopefully leave this video feeling inspired about your own journey. I think the best thing about my channel is that I'm not an expert and I'm not a real estate guru. I'm just somebody who got interested in financial freedom and in real estate investing and took a lot of mistakes and some successes to get to where I am now. And that's why I want to share my story with you, in addition to all of the stories you got to hear from the other investors in that video. So first up, who am I, where am I, and what do I do? Like I said, my name is Lili, and where am I? Well, right now I'm at a hotel. I'm traveling for some work, but generally I invest in the Midwest market, and I started out with a strategy called house hacking, and then went to wholesaling, and now to BRRRR investing. And so I do a couple of different things, but my why for real estate investing is to generate enough passive income to cover my living expenses, and then to steadily cover my family members' living expenses, and then after that, raise our standard of living so that we can live the good life, I guess. So what was my first deal? Well, you guys are in luck because I'm actually gonna walk you through the first deal of each type of strategy that I used. In fact, this is a story that I've never told on YouTube before. And I was just talking to a friend the other day and saying like, man, I should tell the story of this first deal, but I don't actually want people to do this because I did so many things wrong. So warning, don't do it this way, but learn from what I did. So I was initially looking to house hack, and house hacking is the idea of buying a property for yourself to live in and then renting out the extra rooms or the extra space to lower or maybe even eliminate your housing expense. And the great thing about house hacking is that when you're buying a house for yourself to live in, that means that you don't have to put down the typical 20 or 25% down payment that most banks are going to require for an investment property. Because it's an owner-occupied property, you can get away with putting as little as 0 to 5% down. And so I was in a situation where I was able to qualify for an FHA loan using a 3.5% down payment. And so that's what I was looking for, something to live in that I could also rent out extra space, ideally a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex. And I ended up finding something. It was a small little complex of what I now know are townhomes, but at the time there were 2 on one side and 3 on the other. And so I thought it was a duplex and a triplex. And one of the ones on the 2 side was for sale. And so I went to the owner and I said, you know what? I would actually love to take both of these using my FHA loan, and the tenant who's on the other side can stay. You can sell them both to me, and then I'll move in to the opposite side. And he was pretty on board, but of course, it wasn't gonna be that simple. We ran into quite a few problems. First, we were trying to figure out if the properties were actually classified as duplexes or not. So even though they were connected and they shared a roof and they shared a central wall, we had to go to the city and see if they were classified as duplexes or just as attached townhomes, because that would change the type of loan that I was able to get. The FHA loan allows me to buy a duplex, doesn't allow me to buy 2 attached townhomes, and eventually the city came back and said, nope, they're not duplexes, they're 2 attached townhomes, and if you want to change it, it's going to be like a 6-month process where you have to get all the neighbors' permission, you have to pay a couple $100s to get them classified as duplexes, and I knew I didn't have that long before the seller really wanted to sell at least one side, and so that was out of the picture. But another important thing about that vacant side that he was trying to sell was that he had just gone through an eviction, and the tenants who were being evicted on their way out trashed the downstairs of the property. The upstairs was completely fine, but they flooded the downstairs, they poured concrete down the drain, like it was pretty bad. That's where I ran into my second problem, because it was a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom duplex, and I figured that although I don't want a roommate, I travel a lot. This is back when I was playing for the Harlem Globetrotters. So I figured even if it's not a traditional house hack, I could do like an Airbnb house hack where I live there while I'm there, but when I'm on the road traveling, I Airbnb it out and I use that income to pay off the mortgage. And so I was still gonna go forward with the deal and try to get the FHA loan. But when the FHA inspector came through, he said, this property is not in livable condition because of, this list of items. And there were things like the flooding of the downstairs, so there was no flooring, it was just the concrete subfloor, the lack of working pipes in the kitchen, there was no railing on the stairs because they had kicked off the banister. And so these were things that would need to be fixed before I could actually get the loan to do the FHA Airbnb house hack. And so this is where Lili doing something really stupid came into play. I basically did what's called a lease option, where you rent the property from the owner with the agreement that you have the option to buy it for a certain price at a certain date. And the reason that this was stupid was two things. First, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't actually use a lease option contract. I just used a regular lease contract that had kind of like an addendum at the end. And it said like, within 3 months, you can buy the property for this price and I won't sell it to anyone else. And I don't really know how legit that was. I was kind of just depending on the seller to keep his word. So if I had to do it again, I would get the correct documents drawn up by the correct attorneys and just pay the couple $100s that it would have cost to do that. So here's my bright idea. I'm thinking that the seller's willing to sell me this property for, I think it was $145,000 because it's kind of in bad condition. But if I take the time during that lease period and I'm trying to do this in like 1 or 2 months and I fix it up so that it can pass FHA inspection, well then it will be worth more than the $145,000 and I'll still be able to use my 3.5% down payment rather than using a 20 or 25% down payment like I would if I had to buy it before it was in FHA approvable condition. So hopefully that makes sense. And the risk that I was taking was, one, not having the right contract, but two, like what if I couldn't pull off that renovation and get it into FHA condition in time? Or what if I did all of that and then something happened with my loan qualification and I couldn't get the money and I just fixed up this man's house and now he can go sell it to somebody else for top dollar when he didn't have to do any of the renovation?
Wait a minute.
None of those things really crossed my mind. I was just like, I'm doing this, I'm gonna make it happen. And it actually did. I'm gonna say that was definitely more luck than skill on my part. But the good thing was that I took the initiative and I got in there and I renovated that property myself. I paid some friends with pizza. I begged my parents and we made it happen. We got the property into FHA livable condition. I was able to get the loan on it and transfer from that lease to executing my option to buy the property. And because I had fixed it up, even though my purchase price was $145,000, when the FHA appraisal came in, it was already at $170,000. So I created that much equity by only putting about $10,000 into the property for the renovation. And if you're wondering where I got that money, I got it from saving while I was in college, from working the first summer after college, and then joining the Harlem Globetrotters and saving all of my money from when I was on the road playing with them. And so that was my $10,000 there. And then I was able to still purchase it using an FHA loan with a 3.5% down payment on that $145,000 purchase price. So that was my first owner finance / lease option deal. And eventually I refinanced that out of that FHA loan when interest rates were really good. And I just put it on a typical 30-year loan. And because I had raised the value so much, I didn't even have to put any extra cash in. I basically just transferred out of that FHA loan so that I could then move on and do something else, which was my initial first idea, which was a legitimate house hack of a multifamily property. The great thing about using an owner-occupied loan is that you're only required to stay in the property for 1 year. After I was done living in that first Airbnb house hack, I was starting to look for my second house hack, which was going to be this time a legitimate multifamily property, and I ended up finding a duplex. The great thing about this deal was that I was able to use that 3.5% down payment again on this duplex because it was a legitimate duplex, and also I was able to get down payment assistance from a state program. And that's something I recommend everyone do. If you're looking at house hack, you need to talk to your lender about down payment assistance at your local level and also at the federal level. Because what that did was it paid the 3.5% down payment on that first legit house hack for me. So I actually didn't have to bring any money to closing. And so because of that, and second, the fact that I asked the sellers to pay all of my closing costs and they agreed, it means I didn't have to bring any money to closing for that house hack. That's been a great deal for me, and it was a great way to get my first multifamily property, but there were definitely some issues that came up in that deal. And so I'm gonna tell you guys to go check out this video right here after you watch this one, because it breaks down really right when it was happening, the issues that I went through trying to get that house hack. the next type of first deal that I had was my first wholesale deal. And I documented that in this 8-part series, from my first day driving for dollars with my mom to going to the title company to pick up my check for, I believe it was $6,000. And the great thing about my first wholesale deal was I learned a ton from watching YouTube, specifically guys like Jerry Norton, Brent Daniels, and Max Maxwell. And so I used Jerry Norton's double dip strategy in order to wholesale an on-market but still distressed property, make a $6,000 spread. The agent got double commission. The seller got exactly what she was looking for in terms of a purchase price, as well as I did some special things for her, like pay for a moving truck and movers to load up all of her stuff. Anything she didn't want to take, she was able to just leave in the property, and we paid for the dumping. And then third, I gave her a 60-day closing timeline instead of the 30 days that most people were going to expect. And so she got all of that and her cash. I got $6,000, and then I passed it off to an investor who got the property that he flips and probably made a couple tens of thousands of dollars on. So everyone left happy. And also, I'm gonna link you guys to this video so you can see the complete breakdown of how that first wholesale deal worked out. And then now I'm onto the BRRRR strategy. And this is the strategy where you buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. And it's the idea of using the same money you use to buy and renovate after you rent the property out to then go ahead and refinance, which is a cash out refinance that basically gives you back that money in order to go do it again. And so let's use super simple numbers to break this down. I'm not that good at math, so if I can understand it, you will be totally fine. Let's imagine that you buy a property for $50,000, and it doesn't matter how cheap it is. It could also be $500,000. Let's go with that so nobody says, Lili, this only works in cheap areas. Let's say you buy a property for $500,000 and it needs a renovation of $250,000. That means you are all in for $750,000. That's a lot. But we don't know if that's a good deal or not because we don't actually know yet what the property is worth. If you're all in for $750,000 and the property's only worth $750,000, then you kind of just broke even. But if the property is worth $500,000, then you just lost some money. But what if you're all in for $750,000 and the property is worth $1 million? In this case, you've got a potential BRRRR deal. What you can do at this point is rent out the property and you'll be getting cash flow. And then you go in to do a cash out refinance. And most lenders will take a look at what is the value of that property, the ARV, the after repair value. And let's say in this case, it's $1 million. They'll take that ARV and give you 75% of that money in cash as a new loan. And so while you're all in for $750,000, you would then get a cash out refinance loan for 75% of the $1 million, which is $750,000. So now you've paid yourself back, and that new $750,000 that the bank loaned you becomes your 30-year mortgage that you pay back with your rental income over the next 30 years every single month. And so that's what the BRRRR strategy is. And my very first BRRRR, I wasn't actually planning on going in and BRRRRing it. I was going to wholesale it to one of the cash buyers that I'd worked with and sold him a couple of deals. And he said, you know what, Lili, I'm super swamped right now with deals, so I'm not buying anymore. But this is a pretty simple deal. I'll introduce you to my hard money lender, and I think that you could take this one down yourself for your first deal. And so, of course, I'm gonna link you to this video right here in the description showing you my first BRRRR deal if that's something you're interested in. And if you're interested in hard money loans, I'll also link this video where I had a conversation with that hard money lender who gave me the money for my very first deal and what types of things those lenders look for. After you watch this video, you're gonna have a ton of options to choose from so you can find your first deal based on whatever strategy interests you the most. Next up, my best deal, or the deal that I'm most proud of. And this is one where it's not that I made a ton of money on this deal. I made $8,000, I think either $8,000 or $8,500, but it's one where I unlocked how simple the process of wholesaling can be if you really get your system set up. So I had a real estate agent who had previously made an offer on a listing that he had, and I made a double dip offer, meaning that I was coming in as an unrepresented buyer. And so I would allow him to not only take the commission he was already entitled to from representing the seller, but also take my half of the commission. And so he would basically make double on this deal if I bought it than if anyone else bought it. And so we started that conversation, we had a rapport. I made an offer through him to that seller, and they denied it, but we had a good conversation, and I told him, hey, if you ever get anything else that you want to get double commission on, send it my way. Here's a criteria I'm looking for. Properties in this area of this size with this amount of distress, etc. So one day he calls me up and he says, hey, Lili, I've actually got a property that's not super distressed. We were actually going to put it on the MLS, but this was like during the height of COVID. And so he said, but the seller just got COVID, and so no one can go into the house, but they still really need to sell like within the next like 15 days. So I said, okay, no problem. Have the seller send you some pictures and then send them to me and I'll see what I can do. And so once he sent me the pictures and sent me the details, I sent it to my best buyer. And I told him, hey, I've got a super deal. It's gonna be really cheap because of the situation that no one can go into the house until the seller recovers from COVID. And we don't exactly know when that's gonna be, but because of that, I've got a huge discount for you. Here's the pictures. It's in the area you want. It's the size property you want. It actually doesn't need that much work, and it's gonna be a great price. And he took 5 minutes to look at the pictures, called me back and said, I'll take it, send over the contract. And so I got the contract for a certain price. I think it was $94,000. And then I was able to wholesale it to that buyer for $102,000. I never went in the property. The real estate agent never went in the property. My cash buyer never went in the property. It was just the connections and being able to solve the problem that the seller was looking for. They needed cash, they needed it quick, and they needed somebody to agree to give it to them without ever going into the property. And so that really showed me the power of setting up your systems, building connections, and really solving problems. Another question that I asked those investors in that other video was, what is your secret sauce or competitive advantage that sets you apart, and would they share it with me? And so I've been really thinking about like, what is my secret sauce? What do I really want to share? And I think it's that I approached wholesaling with the idea of not being a wholesaler forever, but using wholesaling as a low-risk learning ground. And so, like I said, my very first BRRRR deal came from somebody that I had built a relationship with by bringing him multiple deals, giving me access to his hard money lender and kind of vouching for me as somebody who was honest and kind of understood the business. That was me using that relationship I was building to catapult myself into my own success. The first contractors that I ever worked with were contractors that I got from my cash buyers, who I had sent deals, and then when I asked for something, because I had given them value, they were willing to give me value in return. Any deal that I did wholesaling where I ran the numbers on was a lower risk failure than if I had ran the numbers on a deal I was gonna buy myself right out of the gate. And so rather than looking at wholesaling as an opportunity to be perfect and make a ton of money, I looked at it as a low-risk learning ground that would give me a chance to kind of just experiment, learn, make connection, make mistakes that didn't lose me a ton of money, but then use all of that to quickly transfer into my own BRRRR business, where I can now keep a lot of those same deals for myself. And finally, I asked those investors for their final takeaway or piece of advice. And for you, I would say that's to head to the description and check out all of the links I put in there. Whether you're interested in house hacking, BRRRR investing, wholesaling, whatever, there's something for you down there. And I'll see you on the next one.